knows a single word of French. This will be a good chance for you to brush up on your English. Emmanuelle was not aware that the plane was moving along the runway. She did not realize she was flying until the red light went off and the man beside her stood up and offered to put away her jacket. A waiter appeared, carrying a tray of glasses. She chose a cocktail by its color, but it was not the one she expected. It was stronger. Emmanuelle's knees were bare in the golden light shining down from overhead, and the man was staring at them. Under the invisible nylon, the movement of their dimples made agile shadows in the toasted bread color of their skin. She knew the excitement they caused. They seemed more naked than ever under the spotlight which had been turned on them. She felt as if she were coming out of the water after a moonlight swim. Her temples throbbed faster and her lips filled with blood. She closed her eyes and saw herself not partially but totally naked, and she knew that once again she would be helpless against the temptation of that narcissistic contemplation. She resisted, but only to increase the joy of gradually slipping into surrender. Its nearness was announced by a diffuse languor, a kind of warm consciousness of her whole body, a desire for abandon, for opening, for fullness. Little by little, the surface of her lips became more lustrous. Her breasts swelled, and her legs tensed, attentive to the slightest contact. Her brain began experimenting with images. Phantasms assailed her, lips pressed against her skin, genitals of men and women, penises eagerly rubbing against her, pushing their way between her knees, forcing her legs apart, opening her sex, penetrated with laborious efforts that enraptured her. One after another, they plunged into the unknown of her body, thrusting into her unendingly, sating her flesh, and endlessly emptying their semen into her. Thinking Emmanuelle was asleep, the stewardess cautiously tilted back her seat, transforming it into a bed, and spread a cashmere blanket over her long, languid legs. The man stood up and pushed his seat back to the same level as hers. The stewardess turned off the ceiling lights. Only 2 purple night lights prevented objects and people from losing all shape. Emmanuelle's right hand now began to move over her belly, very slowly, descending towards her pubis. The thin blanket undulated above it. Her fingertips, pushing down on the soft silk of her skirt, found the bud of flesh in erection that they sought, and pressed it tenderly. Her middle finger began the gentle, careful motion that would bring on orgasm. Almost immediately, the man's hand came down on hers. She stopped breathing and felt her muscles and nerves tighten. She was neither afraid nor offended. She waited for what was going to follow her collapsed dreams. The man's hand did not move. Merely by its weight, it applied pressure to her clitoris, on which her own hand was resting. She then became aware that his other hand was lifting the blanket and drawing it aside. It took hold of her knee and felt its curves and hollows. It rose slowly along her thigh and soon passed over the top of her stocking. When it touched her bare skin, she sat up awkwardly and turned halfway on her side. As though they wanted to punish her for her futile revolt, the man's hands abandoned her abruptly. But before she had time to react, they were on her again, this time at her waist. They deftly unfastened and unzipped her skirt, pulled it down to her knees, then moved up again. One of them slipped under her panties and caressed her flat, muscular belly, just above the high mount of her pubis, stroking it as though it were the neck of a thoroughbred. Its fingers ran along the folds of her groin and across the top of her pubic hair, tracing a triangle whose area they seemed to be estimating. Then the hand forced her thighs to spread further apart. It closed over her warm, swollen sex, caressing it as if to soothe it, without haste, following the furrow of its lips, dipping in lightly between them, passing over her erect clitoris and coming to rest on the thick curls of her pubis. As they moved to and fro between her legs,